Hey everybody, I'm Jamie Dawn, your revolutionary astrologer, bringing you your celestial wisdom for the week of June 7th through the 13th of 2021. I probably need to adjust my volume for a second. I had to make sure I checked all of my settings here as I'm doing this recording, and Mercury is retrograde. So yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit more. I mentioned it on my video from last week. Also, just a reminder that your individual June 2021 horoscopes are posted by sign. Please check out your sun, moon, and rising sign for some good rounded information. Again, it gets really personal when you sit one-on-one with me. So if you want to know how these planets and the movements are influencing certain areas of your lives and how to navigate that, come find me at jamiedawn.com. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting on these videos. And of course, I always love your support. As I have said many times, I do believe that we need to lean in and lift each other up. We're in a time where this is focused much more on the collective and then how the collective influences us as individuals. And then we step back into our unique and individual expressions and share that as a wonderful creative voice of the collective energy. And so we're going to continue to carry that theme into this week. This week, excuse me, is a big theme around Mercury, of course, retrograde, but also we have a Gemini solar new moon eclipse. And that is happening on the 10th. It's also building up all this energy for our exact Saturn-Uranus square that is happening all year long, but we have an exactitude next week on the 14th. And so we're going to be feeling the effects. We often feel more energy as it builds or applies to these exact aspects before they actually do happen. And then usually once the exact aspect happens, there's often some form of awareness, epiphany, some sort of event that brings something to a head or a culmination. And then we have time afterwards to process and integrate. I often think about, I love food. And so I think about preparing a meal. And right now we're in the process of preparing for the party or preparing for the meal of this new moon eclipse. And so if you think about it, we're inviting our guest, and we've sent out the invitations, and the universe is responding by bringing circumstances. With this being a new moon solar eclipse, often this is external pressure, external circumstances that show up for us to respond to. Really important too, that eclipse energy isn't about initiating as much as it's about responding, which goes right along with that definition of responsibility, right? That I've mentioned 100 times, and I'll keep mentioning, especially for any first-time watchers that have never heard this, but responsibility is the ability to respond. So when an external situation shows up, it's out of our control, but what we can control is how we respond to it. And so with the Mercury retrograde, it's a wonderful invitation for us to check in with ourselves first, listening deeply, because not everything is as it appears to be. So this external circumstance could stir something up inside of us that needs healing, could stir up something inside of us that we may have viewed in one way as our perception shapes our reality, and interpretation of it then starts to drive our actions based on our belief system. And so what we're working with is being able to look at all of these aspects and saying, what is it that I really believe? In order to be the best version of myself, how do I want to act? What kind of response do I want to have? What is it that really lines up for me? Many of you are single, watching this, are waiting for that right love, or you're wrestling around with a current new relationship and trying to figure it all out. And I'm going to ask you, if you can, relax the mind. That's the gift of the Mercury retrograde, is it definitely can activate the monkey mind, so the internal dialogue gets really loud. But if we can use that internal feeling that a retrograde planet often creates, we can get quiet and we can allow ourselves to take care of that worry, that overthinking, that sort of thing. And then we can really listen to what is true in this moment. Remember, the body doesn't lie. So when you're going through your belief systems and you're making decisions, say about the relationships, or even coupled watchers, I know that relationship dynamics aren't always easy, especially when the partner has a moody moment, or maybe that moody moment extends for weeks on end, right? Because they're going through something pretty big. Exhaustion is at an all-time high, affecting our attitudes, affecting the way we react with each other and respond with each other. So again, this particular week, as it leads up to this new moon solar eclipse, is asking us to move gently. Doesn't mean we don't take action. It doesn't mean we stay under the covers, all day long and get nothing done. But it really is about waking up and checking in and saying, what is it that I need right now? What do I feel is right for me? Based on, I look at my calendar and see what shows up, and oh my God, there's a double booking, or oh, I forgot that appointment yesterday. I need to follow up, and that sort of thing. So these are all the things that we're going to be working with. So we're leading up to this party. I'll go back to that analogy. And here we are having a dinner party on the 10th, right? And so as we're setting the table, we're checking off our list. We're making sure that, the RSVPs have been responded to, and we're making sure that we have the right settings and we have all the food in place, that sort of thing. Then when the eclipse happens on the 10th, we will be sitting down to dinner and we're going to be talking about things, subject matters that we want to start creating. We want to plant these new seeds of intention. We're going to be looking at where we can balance duality, where we can use imagination versus reality, past versus future, truth versus deception. These are all going to be conversation topics that we have with ourselves, with each other, with those that we're interacting with. And they may not show up in the philosophical way in which I'm presenting it. It may be where you're sitting down with your beloved, or you're sitting down at a work situation or with children, and you're saying, okay, this is where we want to go in the future now that we're getting back into some form of normalcy, and resources are coming back to us, and we have a chance to do things differently than we did before. So let's look to the future. Let's imagine what this great future can become, and then what do we realistically have to work with in order to make that happen? And then also, what are we missing that we might need to draw to us, and who do we need? So we start looking around not only at what we want to create, but also the reality of what we have in this moment. And also, I would say, going back to the relationship dynamic, if you're starting a new relationship during this time, someone has come to you and expressed their love to you, or expressed their interest, or you and your partner have decided we want to start a family, or we want to invest further into this relationship in some way, take your time. I just want to remind us all, it's important to say yes and respond if it's based on your truth, and also say, let's not make any hard, fast, final decisions for a little while. Mercury stations and goes direct on June 22nd, but it won't actually get out of full shadow until July 8th. So if there's any way that you're able to keep talking, keep forming, consider, your put your turkey in the oven for this dinner, and now that you've started to consume it and you're enjoying it, you've taken it out, right, and you're enjoying it, now you need time, just like at a Thanksgiving meal afterwards, you need time for it to digest. And that's what's coming after the eclipse, is that once you've had these conversations and you've had the seeds that you've planted of intention and all of that, then you need time for it to gestate, time for it to integrate. Now, eclipses, we feel the effects usually a month before, a month after. Very often it doesn't happen on the exact day, but if it does, great. Just keep in mind time. Time is a wonderful tool, but we often use it as a weapon when things don't show up immediately. We are looking for instant gratification, and that's not really what's going to be happening in the month of June, especially with Mercury retrograde. Now, we do have a lot of things from our past coming back to remind us that we are worthy, to remind us that we have the facts, we have the information that we have, and that also we don't know everything we don't know. But we have to keep that in mind as well. That's where self-compassion can come in, to remind ourselves that this isn't about perfection, this is about practice. The best way to use this new moon eclipse is to journal, to speak out loud. We're working with Gemini energy, which is mind and air. It's all about communication and connection. This is also a great time for you to continue to connect, to celebrate the little things that are happening locally for you. It's a great time for you to get in the car and just drive somewhere if you're lacking inspiration. Go to something that allows you to be able to stimulate the mind. Maybe you need to spice things up within the bedroom. Use some form of role play, use some form of fantasy, some form of something that gets the mind engaged first, then the body will follow. And this is the thing that I will offer to, if you're working with a mind, body, spirit connection, remember the body follows wherever the mind leads it. So this is why it's important for us to come back to our heart space, to check in with the heart energy. That's the higher wisdom, the spirit coming in alignment, then directing the mind, which directs the body. So our actions are based off of our belief systems. So if we believe that the universe is loving, then we take loving actions towards ourselves and to others. We also can see whatever the external circumstances that are influencing us. This is often the fate train, if you will, the fate energy, because we're dealing with a North Node eclipse, solar eclipse energy, just like we did on the 26th with the South Node in Sagittarius. So when we're dealing with these ideas or these energies and influences of fate, it's one of those opportunities to be able to say, I'm making this turn into something coming, something future that I can't go back on, nor would we want to. Because remember, we're not the same people that we once were. We have to approach and shape a new reality because the old reality has crumbled and fallen away. So we're rebuilding ourselves, and we want to do it from a very intentional space. This is where we can capitalize on the Gemini Sagittarius axis, is that we can become intentional with our beliefs, which then shape our realities, because this is no longer about seeing it then believing it. This is about believing it, then we see it. That's the power of this new moon solar eclipse. What do you want to manifest? You have to believe it first. And then the concrete evidence starts to form and becomes what it is that you are most desiring. And this is also a time where our social and our mental and our curious mindsets, as well as the connections that we make with others, can be ramped up, which can create more exhaustion if we're not allowing ourselves to have some much needed time and space. The gift of a retrograde, especially a Mercury retrograde, is that it can be our guide into some higher wisdom for ourselves if we allow it. Because remember, Mercury is the messenger of the gods. It's also, Mercury was also the guide for the souls going into the underworld. That took extreme trust. It took extreme capability to be able to usher to, there's such a privilege if anybody has ever sat with somebody who is transitioning from their physical body into spirit form. There is a sacredness to that act. And I would offer that this is a month of great transition, even if it's just transition in the mindset. But we know that when we change our mindset, then we can approach life in a much different way. We can approach our decisions and our conversations in a very different way. I will offer too that this eclipse is going to continue to highlight areas of our lives that we've outgrown and that no longer serve us. So if you're dealing with a relationship dynamic that just doesn't serve you anymore, allow yourself to go through the process, taking your time of transitioning out of that, giving yourself and the other person or parties time for grieving and coming together in a new way. Remember that sometimes when a relationship ends, it's just the roles that end up changing. Doesn't mean the person has to exit your life. The other thing you'll want to pay attention to during this eclipse week is that we are going to have, right at the beginning of the week, we're coming off of a Mars and Pluto opposition. So there could be some power struggles that are external that help to create enough of this tension to find balance between what we believe, what we want, and how we want to shape our next reality. I would also say that one of the reasons I'm pointing to the relationship dynamic, Venus will be sextiling the moon right at the beginning of the week, continuing to set up or lead the energy into this eclipse that happens on Thursday. We also had the moon and Mars making a trine on Tuesday. And we're going to be feeling, as I mentioned, that Saturn-Uranus square that's coming. So there's going to be this drive to be able to feel what we feel, to have what we need. I would imagine this may trigger more of that. I want what I want, and I want it now because I need it in order to feel stabilized, in order to feel secure. And what I'm going to offer is that in the middle of this kind of feeling, a need, a drive, a passion for feeling secure, and this the Saturn-Uranus square, which is all about breaking the status quo, but doing it in a way that allows us to honor tradition and use it as a foundation for us in order to level up. Now, granted, we can also see the Saturn-Uranus square within us as that rebel that sees the rules and says, it's all about me and I'm just going to do my thing regardless of what anybody else thinks. There's a balance here to that. Nothing wrong with that. That's a mantra that I absolutely believe in. We should all live our truth and express it in our own unique way. But we do have to check in with when is it tipping too far over to it's all about me and I'm not thinking about what's best for the collective. Because remember, we are one voice in a unique way being expressed. And so that is something that I feel may also drive us as we move forward this week in our relationships, in the decisions we make. Please try not to make final decisions during the Mercury retrograde, but if you do find yourself in that place of like, here's my decision, I'm open to taking my time to revisit it, to work it, to, where I'm at. This is what I'm thinking my decision will be. It's a good time for it. It's going to work us. And you can use it as an opportunity to be able to create deeper conversations with others in a way that you didn't have before. Another thing that I feel this eclipse will offer just a few of you who are watching is some more truth telling to be coming out. So more information gets revealed, things that you've been dealing with for quite some time that you could feel intuitively were off, or that something wasn't right, or maybe there was something coming that it just hasn't shown up yet. This is a great week for that to come up and out. I think the other one final piece that I want to mention, because it is another big move for a planet, Mars. I mentioned it was making a trine to the moon on Tuesday because it's still in Cancer. It will also be at the anaretic degree of 29 for this eclipse, which gives us a little bit more of a, we'll call it a crisis feeling. When I say crisis to me doesn't always mean bad. It often means that it's something that shakes us out of our norm. It's something that applies to us externally that says, hey, you need to work with this. You need to deal with this right now. And I think that's also going to be another point that we're going to have to pay attention to with, we'll say, fated opportunities, fated moments that show up. And when I say fated, it basically means you just can't ignore it, no matter what, it's there. So let's talk about Mars moving into Leo. That happens on Friday, the 11th. And so we're going to be feeling, hopefully, Mars likes being in fire signs, as it's traditionally ruled by Aries. and Mars likes the inspiration and the passion that the fire element provides, right? And so with Mars and Leo, we should feel more driven and more inspired, more passionate about being confident in the things that we are truly in alignment with. Imagine that this fated moment shows up. Let's just use the relationship as an invitation here, for example, and you met somebody new, or you're about to meet somebody new. They've come to you and they've said, I want to take you out for dinner or meet for a drink or whatever. With Mars and Leo here, your confidence could be energized and ramped up. One, because they asked, and two, because you're ready to present yourself as strong and capable, and you've got this. Anybody who's transitioned out of one relationship and are looking for a new one, that's the confidence, and the fear of rejection is probably the first thing that shows up in any new meeting, right? And so with Mars and Leo here, you may find yourself really driven to shine and to show why you deserve to explore this, and use the Gemini energy right now to stay open and stay curious. It's not a time to automatically go to the future. It's a time to stay present in the moment and to be able to say, let's just see where this goes. I don't even know what the story is, but I'm going to ask questions, and I'm going to be, enjoying the process. So with Mars in Leo, we may also be driven, it really depends on the area of your chart where it's active, but you may also be driven towards something in particular that you've been wanting for a long time, and it can make you super focused. It can also make you overly aggressive. So if you are pursuing, whether it's a connected relationship or a new one, you may find yourself, if nothing else, internally thriving, clinging, grabbing for that next piece, that next level. Like, when are we going to get there? I need it now. Again, more of that instant manifestation feeling that can create pain and suffering for us, because here's this wonderful thing called time. Saturn rules time here, and it is retrograde in Aquarius. And so here's Saturn going, it's not time yet. You still have things inside to work on. So if you can use the relationship dynamic as the mirror that it can be, and notice what is said, what is done. Is this person bringing out the best in me? What are they reflecting back to me that I may still need to work on? And this doesn't just have to be romantic. This could also be business. This is where I would sense that many of us are going to be revisiting certain areas in our life, like I mentioned, that either serve or don't serve. And we use it as a, where am I now? Is what I'm engaging in a reflection of my highest standards, my values, the things that I know are true for me? If it's not, I need to start thinking about making other decisions. This is also a great week if you've been waiting on that job opportunity or that interview or that new love to just suddenly appear. This is a good week for things like that to happen. So I would offer this because we have a lot of air energy this week, on top of a little bit of water in here. But there's a huge dominating air energy that it's going to be really important to watch our mind. So anybody who's engaged in mind training, it's important to pay attention to where we put our attention. What stories or narratives are we repeating over and over again to ourselves? Because that is going to drive our emotional body, which then creates enough dynamic tension, enough energy, enough ramping up that we're like, I have to take action now or I'm going to go crazy. And then we can often regret. So please don't make an emotional decision. Allow yourself to relax the mind, channel it. Remember, the body follows where the mind goes. So, all right, grounding is always important. As I like to say, very often teachers will say, drink water so you can ground. Yeah, because it makes you have to pee. So cheers to that. I will drink to that. And it keeps us in the body, right? All right, you guys, have such a great week. I want to know how this eclipse is affecting you. Find me at jamiedawn.com and enjoy the water.